Everybody's need for speed. I can put our wings in the wind faster than you could ever believe. Are you ready to rock? Fun that don't ever stop. We are on a crash course of freedom that's running on as long as we want.
The License and Registration Show is brought to you by Wheelhouse Storage, luxury garage condos for all of your toys. Visit wheelhousestorage.com for more information. Now on to the show. Yep. All right. So we're recording. Welcome to the License and Registration Show. I am your host, Mike Rioux. Thanks again for joining us. And today I've got a couple of great friends in the studio. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Hey, this is Johann Schnell, and I'm been Mike's friend for 15-ish years.
I think we may be older than that now.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah.
And I'm Buddy Boyter. About 15, 20 years or so in the car world with you guys. Same stuff.
Awesome. Great having you guys on. All right. So getting into some stuff. So recently you guys just got done with your annual Rolex 24 camping shenanigans. No, I kind of follow it every single year. It looked like this year was pretty fun too. So I figured it'd be a great topic to start off with. When did you guys start this?
It started off with actually as one of the hosts that was supposed to be here with us, Ernie, as his bachelor party. Yeah. We were all trying to figure out something because Ernie doesn't drink. Ernie doesn't do really any of the normal stuff you do at a bachelor party. So Johann actually was like, what can we do to make this better for him, for something that we wouldn't normally do? Mm-hmm. And we decided at that point that we were all going to go do the Rolex for the weekend, and it kind of took off from there. And then, of course, Ernie didn't make it to the first one, so the whole reason we were there.
Kind of like this podcast, like he was supposed to be here today. And
there's even some questions on here that we're going to be talking about, about his stuff. But yeah, so we ended up starting out there, and we've done it now, 7, 8 years in a row?
It's been a good tradition where, we've gone through different stages in life with a lot of the different people, but it's been the same core guys. We've added a couple of people. Every once in a while, someone will bounce in, but then they won't make it for the next one. But as far as the original core group of people, everybody's the same.
Yeah, and you can tell that we've evolved as well. We started off with 2-man tents with everybody huddling for warmth, and
someone's trunk.
Yeah, and now we're to glamping, as we more call it last time. I think there was only 2 people staying in tents last time. One was in the car, Ernie, and Lewis was in the tent, and everybody else was inside the trailer.
And even Ernie had set up an air mattress in the Tesla.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
so he wasn't
really,
exactly
there's only
put it
one
in dog
person
mode
tenting.
as he's living in it.
Yeah.
There's only really one person that's tenting now.
Yeah.
And that was by choice because there was technically room in the campers.
There's plenty of room. Even ours had plenty of room into it. So it's definitely evolved just because I think as we get older, now we know how it works.
Right.
And then, of course, just the capabilities to just show up and set up and be done and not worry about the wind, the rain. We've actually had some pretty good weather the last couple of years, but
it figures like we finally have awesome setups.
Right. 4 or 5 years ago, it was 20 degrees and freezing cold, and
even just 2 years ago was when it got rained out, right?
Yep.
They had like 6 or 7 hours of stoppage or something.
The first
like that.
time they had 2 red flags, and they ended on a red flag. It was.
And this year was basically the complete opposite. Weather was gorgeous, almost to a fault. Like there was no incidents on the track.
Last 2 years has been like that.
Last 2 years have been like that.
Last 2 years has been 50, 60, 70s degrees, no rain, almost no wind. So it's been the car. I mean, the drivers are obviously phenomenal at what they do, but it's really been more about just can the cars last at that point because.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because what we really like is going to the garages and seeing the cars being worked on and wrenched on. And for the past 2 years, there's just nothing.
So this past year, they set a record for longest green flag, and I think they said it was almost 8 hours of green.
Yeah.
So I mean, and so this past year, I didn't do the whole weekend. I showed up at midnight Saturday night, so I showed up with a Sunday pass. Got in the minute that I could show up, and kind of went to the garage expecting to see some things going on, and the only thing that had gone on was one of the new mid-engine Corvettes was down and they were having issues, which seemed to be an issue for them the whole night through. But Yeah, it was pretty uneventful.
Yeah, other than like the Lamborghini that started on fire. I mean, there were some other incidents that happened, but it was car malfunctions. There really wasn't any massive driver errors because there's just, I mean, it's basically on a simulator as much as possible with that kind of weather.
Right.
I mean, it's just not it's a rinse and repeat for them. Just get in and go when you're not dealing with rain and cold and all that stuff that they typically deal with.
Yeah, the cool part about like having the setup that we do now is that really when you're camping, the elements do take a beating on you. So like by the time we get back home on Sunday, we're spent. Whereas like nowadays, we come back on Sunday and we're fresh. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and if you're living in these tents at 20 degrees and freezing,
yeah,
you don't want to go out into even worse weather. Where at least when we're cold or hot in some cases, you can go into the actual campers and cool off,
get some
and
heat or cool off
whatever you want to,
something,
and not have to worry about it, so you can get ready to go out again.
Right. So to somebody who has not been to the Rolex before, who wants to make the trek, is thinking about camping, like what are a couple of those things that you may have done or had forgotten, I should say, the first time you guys went out that like now you're like, yeah, definitely don't forget this?
Like tent camping?
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's say they're going out, they're going to be tent camping for the first time, not pulling up in a, diesel pusher or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that if they're going to be tent camping, I think definitely be prepared for the different types of weather that you can have during the day. Because even with really nice weather, it could be hot during the day. And so you could be going in and it's warm when you're watching the track during the day, and then all of a sudden the sun goes down and it starts getting cold. So I'd say be prepared for the elements. But from a camper perspective, even if you don't own one, just rent one. Because I was watching Buddy and Corey, you guys rented one this year, and it's just so easy. You just show up. Yeah, you just pack up your car with the stuff that you want for the weekend, and you show up, and it's all done. And I think that by far that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it basically came down to $50 a person per night. We had a 34-foot nice camper with recliners and everything, and it ended up costing each person $50 a night to be there. And that was full setup. The guy drove it up, set it up, connected it up, cleaned it out for you. I mean, it was 100%.
You basically showed up like a hotel room,
right?
Yeah. Now there's also like the cost of the site and other stuff, but for just the camper, I'll take $50. I'll take $100 or per night to not have to set up anything and not be in a tent.
Biggest thing I would say if you're going in the camping side is just be prepared that you are in a camping side. So there are people walking by your camps that you're going to hear. There are next door neighbors that are blasting half drunk or full drunk in some cases, making noises. We've got some bro dozers out there at night that get silly and goes out there and tries to, roll coal going by you when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, because it is a 24-hour race.
Right.
And you're going to hear the hum of the race, as long as it's not red flagged, much more in a tenting area. And they've got lights. They've got floodlights to keep everybody safe. So depending on where you situate your tent, make sure you're watching for those floodlights so you're not looking directly where these 4 spotlights that could light up the, the football field looking right at you.
Definitely.
And walking shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Walking shoes for sure.
I think I remember one of the first events I'd gone to at Daytona, and I think I wore flip-flops, and I've only ever made that mistake once.
Yeah. Walking shoes.
So I have to ask one more thing about the Rolex. So there's a great picture that was posted, and I believe, Buddy, it's you. Someone bet that you couldn't get into the camper in a certain fashion.
Oh, jeez.
Wasn't really a bet more than anything else.
No?
It was Johann had showed up on Wednesday. We were going to show up on Thursday. And anyone that knows me knows I hate random noises. Like, I will go sell a car if there's a random noise I can't find into it. It just annoys me. And we're sitting in camp after setting up on Thursday, and all of a sudden we just hear this beep.
Oh, no.
Beep. And we're like, where is this coming from? And come to find out, it is his CO2 detector, because his battery's going dead because he had brought it straight from Disney and it had run out of battery. And so we were like, we call Johann and like, hey, do you happen to have a key around here so we can get in here? Your thing's beeping. We don't know what it is, but something's beeping. And he's, of course, said no, because that would be too much, too easy at that point.
I had offered Corey my key before, and he's like, "Oh no, we're not going to need it."
No, we're fine.
Okay.
So we're like, well, what can we do for this? So we're trying to pick locks, and we're trying to see if any of the windows are popped open to try to get in. And Mike Ellis, one of the people that got there with us, he has a camper, and he's like, well, these outside doors typically only have one or two different keys for all of them. Like you can go to anywhere and use them.
Yeah. Definitely.
So he happened to have one on his keychain because, well, he's an old guy that's got 75 keys on his keychain.
One of these has got to work.
And he pops the bottom underneath where would be his couch and the, I guess one of the bedding areas.
Is that kind of like one of the pass-throughs?
So it's basically the door that you could put your shoes and stuff like that from the outside of the camper.
Yeah.
But on the inside of the camper, there's a cubby opening, like a cabinet opening door that's a square under the couch. So under my jackknife couch is this little shoe garage area.
Okay.
And
we're talking
of course,
about 12 inches by 12 inches, like
not
square.
so of course, there's only one person that's equipped to our grease man.
We pop it open, and they're like, I don't think you can get in there. I don't know. The funniest thing was having Ellis, a 60-year-old guy with a nice pot belly on, originally started sticking his head, and we're like, no, we're not getting the jaws of life. Get out of there, Mike. And I was like, well, if anyone's going to, let me. And yeah, we slid right in. And then what made it worse is we get in and we unlock it, and of course he's on the phone at this point going, I don't consent.
I don't consent
to this. You're breaking
I do not
in.
consent to this.
And we get in there, and we're trying to figure out what's doing it. So we come out to try to get tools, and this.
Right.
We didn't realize that when you unlock a trailer or camper from the inside, it doesn't unlock the key from the outside. So I unlocked it, closed the door again because, be nice, close the door. We go up to open it again, and it's locked again. So we have to reopen everything. Back through we go.
Through the tunnel.
Ended up doing it 3 times in order to get the thing covered in a pillow to shut it up enough to when he got there the next day.
Yeah, the camper, we had camped at Disney for Marathon Week.
Okay.
And then the camper stayed at my buddy's house because he lives relatively close to Daytona. So the camper stayed with the fridge on for another week. And then at the Rolex, I dropped it off on Wednesday. So it really sat for like a week and a half on just battery power with the fridge. And so I knew it was running low. So when I got the phone call that there was a beeping, I was telling Corey on the phone, I bet it's the battery. The 12-volt battery is causing the CO2 to alarm. And so I'm hearing the shenanigans going on.
You're hearing
and
this
I'm
going
like,
on in the background.
There's nothing you can do. There's not, you're just shut it down. Like if they would have allowed me, I would have said, just do the battery disconnect and
It'll turn it all off.
Right. But the grease man was already in.
Oh, well, the challenge was on at this point.
So it was hilarious seeing a picture. It's funny thinking about it. This is the second year where there's a picture of Buddy's ass somewhere in a camper. Because remember with the ambulance?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, there's that picture too.
That's great.
So,
and one more thing with the Rolex, kind of moving away from the camping portion. So a lot of people were talking this year about the small field that was there. I think they had 28 or 30 something cars, which seemed very low. And then after going back and looking at things, I kind of looked at the numbers, and they had been kind of steadily decreasing over the last 4 or 5 years. Do you think that speaks at all to the health of kind of the IMSA endurance racing altogether?
I think there's a couple things going on, right? The first thing we've got going on is just manufacturers pulling out. I mean, we saw Ford pull their GTs this year.
Yep.
A lot of people say it's because they didn't want to race against the vets, but, it is what it is. There's at least 2 teams that were gone right off the bat. And then with the push with the electric, we're seeing a lot more emphasis being pushed towards electric and towards hybrid, which, of course, doesn't bode well for IMSA and for doing what they do out there. So I'd imagine between those two things that we're going to start steadily seeing a decrease where they're talking about even the VW super electric car that was brought out could potentially kill even F1 just because they're seeing the capabilities of what the batteries can do.
Right.
As long as they can figure out a way of changing batteries and or charging them to keep them going for longer than whatever they're doing now.
Right. Yeah, because like you have things like Formula E right now that they last 15 to 20 laps.
And then they got to jump out and change cars and keep going.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so they're actually talking about there's a new joint venture between IMSA and FIA. So they're saying that not this year, of course, this year's already passed, but in 2021 or 2022, I forget which, you're actually going to have a combined field between IMSA and FIA. So hopefully we're going to see a much larger field again that'll bring in some different manufacturers, some more teams, things like that. Because I think it's a great experience. Like if you like cars at all, like Rolex and a lot of those types of events at even Daytona and across the country are just fantastic to go to.
Well, even like, we always get tickets to go to Rolex or to go to NASCAR, and it's just a different experience. You go to NASCAR and you're going to Disney for rednecks that love racing, and the stands are full. You are waiting 2 hours in line to park. Rolex allows you to go down there and see things that are actually innovative, not stuck to a specific stat. And the stand, I mean, you can go and pick any stand just about in the whole stadium of the only sports car stadium in the world, and it's open. Yeah. It's just a different experience, though, to where if you truly are about cars and want to get into the pits and do things you're not going to see on a NASCAR, you just can't do it unless you go to a Rolex.
Yeah, to me, it's the variety. And so having that small field that did suck because at first, when we first started going, I really wasn't big into the prototypes. Right. I really liked just seeing the normal type cars, and even like the lower level Porsche teams to me were more intriguing because they were more closer to attainable. Yeah. From a even working on wrenching and kind of thing. Right. But what I really enjoyed was having the variety of technologies. So like I remember the Delta Wing. We were all rooting for it just because it was awesome. Crazy. It was something different. And then I started liking the Mazda prototype teams because they were running that 2.3 Sky Active and it was doing really well. And then when the Ford team showed up with the EcoBoost, that was sweet because then you just get to see a variety of different styles. Like the Vet will be the Vet and it'll sound awesome as it is. But then it was cool when the Ford GT came in, and then they were neck and neck. And then the Porsche itself, its engine sounds different. Yep. So it's cool having those varieties, and I'd welcome having electric cars or hybrid cars in it, just because that's where the technology is going, and the instant torque of an electric engine maybe paired kind of like a McLaren style. Yeah. Where it's like when the P1 came out, like why weren't we doing this before, where we can fill in that boost, the turbo lag. With electric power. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, plus it'll add more people to the field in general. So the driving, like we're talking about, weather is a huge piece. Well, so is the field. If you only got 20 people on a 3.8 mile track of Daytona, there's not a whole lot of traffic unless you're after a yellow or a red start.
Yeah, and they bunch back up.
They bunch back up after that, but they can spread out pretty easily. And that's why some of these teams, like the Porsches and stuff, are finishing right behind each other, because if the technology's there and the car is done right, there's not a lot of traffic to separate them. The prototypes will go flying by when they do, but the stock cars are all going to stay generally the same unless they have mechanical failure. Well, you start throwing in different versions like electrics or even just more cars in general, and there's going to be more to get around, and there's going to be more possibility for breaking up that monotony of just going through and through and through with the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. So talking about hybrids, EVs, things like that, I think is a pretty good transition into the next topic. So recently, the Koenigsegg Gamera. I'm gonna roll with Gamera because I have actually no clue how it's actually pronounced. 4-door sedan from Koenigsegg, 1,700 horsepower. But the mix in it, so not only do they have an 1,100 horsepower electric motor, it's supplemented by a 600 horsepower 3-cylinder camless motor. Now, supposedly it's got cup holders, everything in between, 0 to 60, 1.9 seconds. Is this a basically coming back at Porsche since Porsche came out with their 4-door hybrid electric car?
You commented on it earlier a few days ago, so I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean it's the way the world's going. It's taking the idea of EV for being gas sipping and world saving and putting it to a performance side of it. And even Hyundai, Hyundai now have got a variable cam engine that's actually going into production. It's a 1.6 liter turbo that's going into production now. Right. Same idea. Now, granted, Koenigsegg is doing more of an electric and a individual valve tuning, where they're doing more of a rolling tune towards it. But still, it's the idea that how do we get more horsepower when you need it, and how do you get more MPG when the EPA wants it, with the same type engines, smaller displacement, 3 cylinders, 4 cylinders, with the availability to move up and down that torque curve to add horsepower when needed and not. I mean, it's a no-brainer to go that way, even if they're not going into the full electric world. It is the capabilities that they have that you're just not going to see in a conventional ICE engine.
Yeah, like to me, I remember in 2010 when the 3rd gen Prius just came out.
Yep.
Like I was one of the first of our car group of friends to get one, just
Right.
because I thought it looked cool. I never liked the 2nd gen, but the 3rd gen when it came out, I thought it looked sweet. And we got one, and I remember several friends of mine making fun for having it.
We still do, because he says it was sweet looking. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, but you got one too.
I got it it was a refrigerator on wheels to
Yeah,
me.
it's
It
an
wasn't
appliance.
because it looked sweet.
Perfect
I
appliance.
didn't put wheels and suspension on my
GTS
Prius.
wheels, man.
Oh,
Celica
that's
GTS
right.
wheels. Don't
That's
hate.
right, you
It was
did.
lowered on Celica GTS wheels. It looked good. But at the time, I remember thinking like, man, there has to be a performance angle to it, and this was before the P1. And so what I like when I see the Gamera and things like that, we need to, like, I moved to this country because you see people doing crazy things, and it's through trying to get those crazy things that technology gets advanced. So to me, having a company like Koenigsegg do these crazy cars, it just, people will shoot for that, and at some point that technology trickles down to our normal cars.
Yeah, and one of the interesting facts as far as how not just 1,700 horsepower hybrid 1.9 seconds, so it's also made to run on renewable alcohol.
Right.
And supposedly, when running on renewable alcohol, its CO2 output is the exact same as what it would be if you were driving an EV.
Yeah.
Koenigsegg has been known, right? They had the torque converterless automatics. They've had the drive shaft. I mean, Koenigsegg always seems to push the envelope.
Right.
Fiber wheel.
Carbon fiber.
Before
Before
it became
anybody else, they always seem to push that envelope. But they seem to do it responsibly. It's not just doing it, just do it. They return some of the stuff that everybody wants to see: less emissions, more electric,
Right.
That kind of. So they get the performance out of it. Now, granted, you're talking about a car that's a $2 million car.
Oh, yeah,
you might find
right.
it at the wheelhouse, but you're not going to find it rolling down Walmart or anything
Right.
else to go around.
Exactly.
Right.
But that kind of stuff does end up in technology we see now. It might be 10 years later,
But
it does end
do
up.
you think that pushes some of the major manufacturers, your
I think
Hondas, your
Tesla is
Fords, your
pushing
Mercedes?
the major manufacturers in ways that nobody else has been able to do. I think it really has taken Tesla's disruption in mainstreaming EV to start really pushing the envelope on it. And that's why, like, to me, as crazy as Elon Musk can be, we should look to have more people like him or more companies like him. By no means perfect, and the car could have flaws.
Right.
But mainstreaming these technologies is not a bad thing, because it gives us the consumer choices. So, not everybody will want an EV, or not everybody will want a hybrid, but
Right.
at least, half-ton trucks now, they're getting way better miles per gallon than they used to.
Well, then Ford's already testing an electric F-150.
Right.
And then, of course, Ford also has the Mustang Mach-E. So regardless of how you feel about the naming
name.
nomenclature, it's still, I guess supposedly the pre-production numbers are already sold out. I almost think, again, not really agreeing much with the name, but I really think it was Tesla, the Model X, that really pushed the other manufacturers to start developing these types of platforms.
Right. I can't wait where a true EV truck can tow and have range.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, will be a more obtainable platform. You hear that, Porsche?
Yeah. If you can't hear it on the episode itself, we actually got one of the Wheelhouse residents is getting his Porsche out right now.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely a
it
Porsche.
sounds
right?
pretty good.
I can't see it from.
Oh no, it is.
Yeah. I wonder if it's the 4. It sounds like the 4-liter.
I'm sure it's there's some great collections here. And I think that the gentleman I did see go by, he's got 3 or 4 of them hanging out, and he just picked up a club. Cup car.
Nice.
GT4 Cup car or the 911?
911 Cup car.
The GT3 Cup car?
Yeah. So it's the white one, kind of got a Brumos livery to it.
Yeah, the one thing I don't agree with necessarily EV is it's great for right now. I just think it's an in-between. The problem is that it still takes electric, and everyone thinks electric is free on the world, and it's not. That's my biggest problem with all of it is everyone thinks, oh, I got an electric vehicle, therefore I have zero footprint, and that, hey, and it's not. There's still a coal burning or a nuclear burning plant somewhere that's providing that electricity for you to plug in until
still mining to get
the manufacturing to the lithium and everything else. I think I read an article somewhere, the breakdown of kind of where that CO2 greenhouse break even point is. You had to drive your Tesla, just let's say an average Tesla, so I'm not sure what that would put you at, but it came out to anywhere between 60 and 70,000 miles before you even broke even on your carbon footprint.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's going to have to go hydrogen. We're literally, what you are spitting out as water. You're doing nothing to the environment because you are using compressed hydrogen, and ending up with water is where we're going to end up in order to really kind of stop the emissions that there is. The performance gains are great, especially when they're used in a hybrid way. And I even think, me personally, I think that even vehicles like the Prius is better for the environment because they don't have nearly as much batteries as we're talking full 5,000-pound cars now because of the battery plates going into it, where you can get a 2,400-pound Prius and still be able to get 50, 60 miles per gallon.
Right.
It's just less. I just hate the thought that California and some of these more liberal states, if you want to call them that, that are pushing EVs and EVs and EVs. The end game of it is just there's still a footprint, and it's almost as if there isn't. It's almost like throwing stuff in a recycling bin means it goes away and it never shows up again in the world. And it's still going somewhere. It still takes stuff to recycle that, and that's the misinformation that a lot of people, I believe, have. Is it better than a Hellcat running? Probably. We're better than a Hellcat, right? And then you get the other side too, where people claim, I could drive a Hummer 19 times around the world for the price of the CO2 footprint of one EV.
Right.
I don't believe.
And we should just all drive $3,000 Corollas that are 20 years old.
Right. or Honda CRX HFs, and you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you ever see either one of you purchasing a full-blown EV?
I've been considering it. The Tesla 3, the performance. Obviously, I track a lot of stuff. We have the Type R as our little play toy when it's not a full-blown track day.
Right.
They're just getting ready to release the Track 2 V2 for the Tesla Model 3.
Okay.
It's about to be an over-the-air update. And now Tesla's actually going to sell a $5,500 installed kit for the Model 3 performance, which includes bigger brakes, bigger brake calipers. It's going to do better tires, Cup 2 tires.
Oh.
So they're actually trying to make it a full-blown, and we went to AMP about a month ago, Atlanta Motorsports Park, and they had about 24 EV parking spaces to actually plug your cars in. So that's the biggest problem right now is that you go take it to a track, it's setting records because it may not be visceral in hearing the engine going, but it's fast. But you're good. There's someone that had a full charge that went out and they got 33 minutes before it was shutting itself down, before it was saying, I can't get to where I can get to a station.
Right.
So until they get some of that more, AMP is a very high-end track with wheelhouse type garages and such, which is why they've got all that. Until you see some of that stuff pop up at Road Atlanta or at Sebring, where you can plug in and actually run your car, you're going to get 30 minutes, and then you're going to have to drive another hour to go to Tesla to get charged up to come back and do it again. And until they can fix that, it's not going to be a viable option.
They'd have to have like the higher class chargers on hand. I think the technology from a performance, like all out performance, like what Buddy's talking about, to having in trucks and towing, it's almost similar type of demand. Like you could have a 300-mile range Tesla, and while it might be a great commuter and even realistic in a state like Florida to be able to make some of these other cities, no problem. When you're talking about from a true performance standpoint at the track, the demands on it are really high. The range is really diminished. Same thing when you're towing anything. So when you're towing anything that will cause a lot of wind drag, the demand on that technology right now is just not there. So to go back to your question, my wife and I have considered it, and we thought a Model S, or but I think what would be more realistic will probably be when there's a Tesla truck, just because or something something to that extent, like the Rivian. I think the Rivian's really cool, but something where it would be feasible to do the kind of towing that we needed to.
Right.
When we probably tow once a month. But they're relatively short distances, 100, 200 miles.
Right.
So when it's realistic to be able to do that and have it be a good daily driver, that's probably when we would jump in. But just kind of watching a couple of the people that are towing with Tesla Model X's, it's just not realistic.
Right.
Yeah, it's really whatever the range is, you divide, and you only get a third of it, if that.
Yeah, but I say a quarter is what most people are saying to be safe, and then charging it.
Right.
So as if it's already not problematic enough in some cases to find a charging port. Now you got to find a charging port while pulling a 24, 34-foot trailer.
Right.
Where are you going to find that?
Right. Yeah, you'd probably have to find the parking lot, drop the trailer, find the plugging spot, that type of thing.
And then when you run into, you guys are kind of past the younger kids. Myself and Johann aren't.
Right.
That's the other side of it too. Even in a daily driver, we've talked about like the model, Tesla, Model 3. But even going to Disney, even if you can get there, you sure aren't getting back on a single charge. So now you've got to find places to park that you can go find something to eat.
You can
'cause
kill
if you
half an hour to an hour.
at least, and then and that's if you don't have to wait or anything
Well, at
else.
Disney,
and then you've got kids.
The Tesla parking is actually the best because you're
Well,
right
of course,
in front row.
any place that has it, it is the best.
Yeah,
so.
they can kind of give you some premier parking.
Yeah,
So
you do get
because
premier
it's
parking.
funny. So even in St. Augustine, you go downtown to the historic district, and parking's always a nightmare. But there's a handful of these electric spots that are in primo spots.
I got someone that actually posted a picture 2 days ago that had a Mustang, a regular 5.0 Mustang.
Right.
That someone had parked in an EV, grabbed the power cord and shoved it underneath the wheel well to make it look like it was an electric, so that he could park there and nobody would complain or block him in or anything else. I mean, I guess that's the first Mach-E that's out there.
Hey, it's a
It's
granddaddy.
a mule. We had no idea. So we talked a little bit about if you would consider an EV, and I know this group, we kind of go through cars pretty regularly. Some of us more than others.
It's a toss-up, I think, between the two of you guys. Well, not really. Close.
I have actually had the same daily for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So that's a record for me.
The only record Buddy has said was the one time I bet someone else that he would get rid of that car. So I'm no longer betting on Buddy keeping or selling cars.
That's the longest car I've ever owned. And
Was the one that I bet, he's not going to keep this
He'll
one.
never keep that one.
Yeah, and that's the one.
So what would be, outside of the EV question, what's kind of the next type of car or exact model of car that's on your radar?
If you ask my wife, it's something Porsche, except for the Taycan. She hates the lack of sound on anything. She wants her SUV burbling, as it goes on.
I think it was a tank.
Yeah, but I really don't know. I really couldn't. As it sits right now, there's nothing that's really on the horizon for me that says I'm going. We've gotten back into a full cage track car, so there's not really something I'm looking at to be both on it. If I had to say something to if it was a fun vehicle to go play with, I'd probably go with a Camaro 1L, ZL1 1LE, just because bang for the buck.
Oh yeah,
or even a C7 Grand Sport, because you can get those dirt cheap right now because the C8 was announced.
Oh yeah, they're dumping them. Yeah.
If I could say what my next one would be, it'd be the C8. But I wouldn't buy a first gen. I wouldn't buy a base model. I'd be waiting for a Z06 or a Grand Sport, but it would have to be. I want the platform proven. I give them kudos for moving forward and pushing the envelope.
Right.
But as well as I do, any car manufacturers, the first models are typically problematic, and you add this to it, to mid-engine. You add these dual clutch transmissions that they've never done before, and
Right.
there's just a lot of stuff that could potentially go wrong, and it's going to be a learning curve.
I just got the Jeep Gladiator.
Oh,
so
I'd say you just got something.
that, to me, that was what I was looking forward to when they finally announced it. I was really interested in getting one, and so I waited for a couple months and seen what it truly could do. So I think I'm living the one that I was really going after, but I think realistically, I did it on a trial period to see if this is something that could realistically be a good all-around truck for us.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a fun 3 years, but realistically, I'm probably considering what will the next truck to replace the Gladiator be, or if it'll be a Gladiator.
Right.
I'm just playing devil's advocate on that. From a fun car perspective, I want to get into the wheeler dealer mode, where I find like a $10,000 car, play around with it, fix it up, find one that needs work,
Right.
fix it up, and then kind of work my way up. I haven't done that yet, just because we've been spending time
You
and
guys
money
have
on
been busy, yeah.
camping
Yeah.
and the truck and just a bunch of stuff. But from a car perspective, something V8 rear wheel drive manual.
Yep.
So maybe like a used M3, the 892.
Oh, okay.
But I'd be scared of getting the wrong one, or maybe
Right.
something maybe like a 5.0 Mustang, from this current body style, but finding like a decent deal on one.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
with the Coyote engine, just something like that, just something different. Because all I've ever had are turbo 4-cylinder all-wheel drives.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you went from the Evo.
The Eclipse, like all
Well, yeah,
DSMs.
yeah.
I had a GTI that
Yep.
was turbo.
Yep.
And then the Eclipse. So and then the Evo, the Evo 10.
So when we talk about the Gladiator, you came from a Tundra
Yeah.
into the Gladiator. So how has that been in
miss the
towing
space.
experience?
I missed the space. I saw his F-150 just
He
now.
almost cried when
Oh
he
my
opened up my
God.
rear door, and he was like, "Oh my God, look at that! How much?"
Inside.
All the room.
All the room, yeah. I do miss the Tundra, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think that while it might be crappy on miles per gallon, the sound of the 5.7, the roominess of the Tundra, and just like the overall, like it's a tank. I think like playing hardball on it, I'd be hard pressed not to go back to one. And maybe get like a 3-year-old one, like the current 2020
Yep.
that now has the technology it should have had.
Right.
Something like that. Because that was the crappy part about my 2016, is that it still didn't have anything.
Felt a little dated.
It was definitely
Well,
dated.
it's Toyota in general. I mean,
Yeah.
Toyotas in general seem to be almost a full generation older. I was telling someone today that
But reliability.
yeah, and reliability is
Oh, yeah.
definitely there. But like with my Ford, this is only my third Ford, and out of 120 some odd vehicles, this is only third. I think it's third or fourth Ford. So I've never been a Ford guy, because even the two of the other ones I've had have been a 1986 Ford Aerostar van I used to move from North Carolina to Jacksonville and then threw it away. So definitely have not been a Ford guy, but this EcoBoost F-150 Lariat
Right.
that I have, there's just, if it got totaled today and someone wrote me a check and said go buy something else, I'd find the exact same truck with the exact same options, just a different color.
Yeah. You've sung the EcoBoost praise.
I mean, you're talking 18,000 miles in 1 year, and 14 of them's been pulling all through North. I mean, we've
taken
down
some
to
trips.
Central Park. We've gone all the way to Connecticut. We've gone all the way to Dallas.
Well, what was that? You took that one long, like it was
3,100 miles in 72 hours.
Yeah.
That was to Arkansas.
That was, so it went from here to Connecticut to drop off the in-game Lotus, and then went from there to Indianapolis,
Right.
and then from Indianapolis to Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma back to Jacksonville in 72 hours. While pulling a 24-foot enclosed trailer and selling a car and buying another car.
Well, there's an episode of Wheeler Dealer right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So talking about trips, I know I saw you had talked about taking a trip out to Colorado to go check out some races. So getting into that, what are some of like the big epic car trips that you've heard about and wanted to experience, or just wanted to go out and do?
We got to in September. We did the Nürburgring, me and my wife.
Yes.
So that was one of the
That was
bucket lists
amazing.
that we wanted to kind of do. It was a 10-year anniversary, and we were talking about sandals and things like that. And we're not beach people, and we're not drinkers. We both race. That's what we love doing. And she wanted to see Spain. Mm-hmm. So we started looking at what it would cost to go out to Spain. And I've been to Barcelona before, and she said, "Well, if we go out to Europe, what is a bucket list thing you'd like to do?" And of course I said, well, it's not right down the road from there, but I'd love to do the ring. And so we started looking into that, and of course made it happen. But that was definitely one of those bucket lists, and you could put a stamp on it to say, hey,
I've done it.
I've done it, right? And so our Type R, which is why we bought that one after renting one at the ring,
right,
has the Nürburgring sticker right in the middle of it, and it's one that's been earned, right? So
yeah,
I mean, it wasn't a fast lap, but
you did a lap.
In a VW Golf R, I was under 10 minutes, 9:41 or whatever and we only get 4 laps out there, so it was enough that you could play, and it was definitely one of the bucket list for a car person to say, you've done it. And we did the whole first timer experience. So we went to Sabine's mom's restaurant, which is on site. We got to see a crap ton of the mules. So we got to see all kinds of mules for the BMWs and the Taycan before it was released as it was racing out, and
that's awesome.
That kind of stuff. So it was definitely if anyone ever wants to go to it, it's definitely, we used RSR as our as the experience there. And it was, we stayed at the Dormant on track.
Nice.
Weirdest thing was it didn't have AC or heat. You actually had to just open the windows, which is strange, but got to do the Autobahn to get there. So, a lot of car checklist done in that one
Not bad
trip.
for one trip.
Yeah. We did a similar Germany trip, but we didn't get to the ring. We did get to rent a Porsche, and that was sweet. But I'll throw you a curveball. Something that's just been on my mind to try to do eventually as a car bucket list is actually something like a Land Cruiser, like an
overlanding,
like an overlanding kind of trip in Australia or something like that, where you're pulling like a trailer camper, like the little boxy trailer campers with overhead tent, like just for real, like just watching people like Patriot campers on YouTube.
Right.
That just looks super cool. I probably want to do that for like a week or so.
It's funny you mentioned it. So I've got a friend, he's going to be on the show here probably in about a month. He lives out in Crystal River in Ocala, but him and some buddies, they're a big overlanding group. He's got a couple classic Broncos. They're going out, I think, with a couple like Lexus, I think it's the LX. I have to remember the SUV. RX. That's it. But so it's 3 or 4 of them driving from here to Canada on the East Coast, and then taking the transcontinental highway in Canada all the way to the West Coast.
Nice.
It's a long trip.
Yeah, it's a long trip. Yeah, but they're doing the whole thing overlanding style.
Yeah. Just here, like with my camper, I don't know about traveling that far with it. We thought when we bought it that that's what we would do. But I think with now how easy it is to rent campers where you go, I'd rather fly, get the camper, rent the camper, show up and see things there. But from a car perspective, like to do a trip, I think something like that would be fun.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
My kicker would have to be Pikes Peak if I had to do anything.
Oh yeah,
Laguna Seca has always been on the bucket list, and then Pikes Peak. To
Peak.
run Pikes Peak would be.
What kind of car to run Pikes Peak? Like just Buddy Dream World.
Is it mine, or do I have to? Or can I rent
It
it?
doesn't matter.
return it.
A guy shows up and said, "Here's your card and the keys."
My old Lotus.
The first Elites with the supercharged engine. Yeah.
That if I have any regrets, that's probably my biggest regret. Not only because it was the longest lasting.
Yeah, that's the one I lost the bet to.
But on top of it, it was built. It was. I could tell you every nut, every bolt on that car from the ground up, and it is missed for the one piece that I could say that I'd love to have taken that out.
That's the one that got away.
Yeah, that's the one the other one just was the right price, the right deal. Threw emotion completely out of it. And then when we decided to get rid of that one, it was really just like, I really kind of wish I could have had my other one back.
Yeah. All right. So next question, getting into some of the kind of current events coming up. We had the concourse this weekend. And typically the concourse is, one of those, you get your old, rare, classic brass era cars, things like that. But we're starting to see a resurgence with some different components in concourses. So this year they're going to have what they call the dream car selection. So it's going to be a lot of your high-end hypercars, exotics, things that kind of appeal to the younger generation. Obviously a play to try to get the younger generation kind of back into the concourse circuit. That's probably seen a decrease in participation, and I've even heard like some events just even closing doors to be altogether. Is there anything that you guys would suggest to not just Amelia or any of the concourses that are out there that right now are kind of struggling with either identifying or connecting with, our generation of car folk, what could they do to try to get us to those events?
I think because I see that problem too in the RV world and in other stuff. I think that so many companies are focusing on millennials, or they're like, let's say for example, they cater towards boomers, and then now they're trying to bring millennials into the fold too because of their thing. But I don't know why Gen Xers don't get included in this. And you think about it from our perspective. 15 years ago, we met at Gainesville Autocross.
Yeah.
Racing our, he had a 350Z with a turbo. I didn't think he had the turbo on it yet.
No.
And then I had a GTI 2003, and then you had your MR2. And it's like our careers have gone up, and so our household income.
Right.
But we're not being marketed to. It's always either the younger crowd, younger than us, or the older than us. But yet we're the ones that have the most disposable income as a generation. We're the ones that are out there producing. So I think that there needs to be more catering to that. That's one of the cool things about the Rolex. It almost seems like the Rolex like it's just there. Like it's just all kinds of cars.
I think my biggest problem with car in general stuff is that the cars that were built to be driven are now being built to be collected.
True.
And look in Wheelhouse. I guarantee you 95% of the cars out here that are inventory.
Yeah.
Even Porsche's had issues with people buying collector's editions and Ford GTs. So in order to buy them, you had to prove that you were going to go out and do something with them.
That's true.
And I just think that's where we're running short. You've got the generation, our generation, I think, still has a lot of people that want to do stuff with the cars, like race the cars. And I just don't think they're going to invest in something like Concours d'Elegance or anything else where you're taking Q-tips and cleaning off the individual V and what's on the rear of it, and then go out to a track onto it, or even work on it on their own. And then you've got the newer generations that just, a lot of them just don't care about cars. I'd rather take Uber than drive a car and play with my phone.
Yeah.
So you're running into it to where they're getting to a point to where the people that have got the disposable incomes don't want what the Concours d'Elegance is offering. You've got, I'm the same way. I mean, if I went and bought a GT3 RS tomorrow, I don't care if it was worth $500,000, and if I put 1 mile on it, I'd lose half the money. It'd still be on the track the next day.
That's right.
And you just don't see that. Very rarely do you see people that are spending the money on those cars that were built to do that and doing something with them. And I think that's a put off. I mean, I really do. When you get someone that is car minded, I used to love to go to it. I don't think I've been to it in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's simply for that. They're great to look at, but it's a poster car.
Yeah, same thing. Like thinking about it, I haven't been to the Concours. I haven't been really wanting to go just because it's not, like, the hypercars are cool to look at, but I'm not going to drive out of my way to go see that because I'd rather, like, to me, what's more appealing is that maybe that Porsche that it might just be the GTS or even the GT3 would be eye candy. But to me, it's like, show me the one that can be used. And that's the one that's cool.
I want to see the chips on it. I want to see the rubber on it. I want to see something that, these people are, in general, spending hundreds and in some words millions of dollars for these cars that were built to do that. We'll never, ever, ever see more than just a trailer to get to a concourse and then back into a bubble, and you'll see them pop up again for sale in 10 years, and they'll do it again.
Yep. So do you think that's why maybe some events like Celebration kind of do things a little bit different, where they do have, of course, their static display on Saturday, but Thursday and Friday is track days at Daytona, and cars are actually getting tossed around the turns?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an experience. I think a lot of, even with my kids, we're stopping to give a lot of presents. Me and my wife have gone through and said, presents come and presents go. There's maybe that one big gift or whatever else, but it's more about the experiences. And Johann's a perfect example of that, was saying, I mean, he's almost out of the racing scene at this point, but it's with campers to go do things with the kids instead of just
the Jeep to be able to pop off the doors, even though it's not as practical a tow rig.
But it provides that moment and that memory.
It's a convertible truck.
Yep.
Those are things that I just see. And that's kind of thing what you're talking about with Concours is, I mean, you might leave and say, oh, that was a really nice looking Koenigsegg out there, or it might be a nice, Pagani or something else. But it's never going to be that car that people want to go buy and own, because they either can't afford it, or if they could, they better not do anything with it, or it's going to lose half of its value. You go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it was, you could go rent a Mustang, the Hertz Mustangs, and go out there and beat the crap out of them, and it was the fastest thing that they offered, and it was meant to be driven. You just don't see that nowadays. I mean, of course, every manufacturer says we tested at the ring, it's the best thing since sliced bread,
Right.
but those ones that are spending that money are just most of them are putting them in a bubble and never touching them again.
And
Yeah.
that kind of thought process that Buddy's talking about too, that's part of the reason why the Evo went. So I had a brand new Evo, and I probably autocrossed that car the most out of all of my cars. But at the same time, it's like, man, it's a really expensive car to have out there. Like, just from a budget perspective, I'd feel more comfortable owning a car that's half the cost, but I just don't care. I can drive it 8 to 9 tenths, as opposed to with the Evo. Like, he drove my Evo faster because he just didn't care.
Right.
And granted, he's a better driver, period. But it's also like I was leaving stuff on the table because it was a more expensive car. So like, to me, I'm more interested in those cars where people use them, and they there's the love for the car, and there's the love to work on cars, not just the love to own the car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the joke is always the fastest car you can drive is someone else's, right? Yeah. Because in the end of the day, you get to drop the keys off and walk away.
Right.
Well, I tried the Elise, and that wasn't the fastest.
So getting into it, so we're talking about racing, and of course, buddy, you've been doing a ton of it. You're fully aware of the expense, like when you have, especially a husband and wife team that are both into the hobby. The advent of esports, and recently the Gran Turismo League that's come about, the Gran Turismo World Tour. So you're starting to get a lot of this younger generation that are getting behind, video games like Gran Turismo, and they're having full on, endurance races and this and that and everything
even
else.
Champ Car is now doing a virtual Champ Car series.
Right.
I mean, so you're taking real series and moving it also as an iRacing setup.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this will be a dual question for you both then. One, would you consider watching and getting into that type of, as far as like almost like a spectator finding, you start getting those guys that they're good in their platform and things like that. And then two, is it good for the real racing hobby? Do you think that's going to begin funneling some of those individuals to actually get behind the wheel?
I don't and wouldn't watch it, and it is absolutely killing racing in general. Just because for $3,000 you can go buy a racing rig, set up in your man cave, and you never have to see a real racetrack, and you never have to. And have raced in some of those, even at Nürburgring. The RSR had one of those really nice G-moving setups.
Right.
It still doesn't feel the same. It doesn't sound the same. It doesn't. It's a whole different experience. And I personally don't like it. I'm also nowhere near as good at it either. It's just because it is a different experience. But I do believe it's absolutely killing. The more we bring into virtual reality and the more we start doing stuff like that, the more people are going to, because it is a cheaper option and obviously a lot safer option. You wreck at 150 miles an hour on iRacing and you hit a button and reset, where you're repairing a car or fixing it. It's absolutely killing it to some extent.
Do you think most of the people, though, that are currently participating in the esport version, do you think they would have even considered jumping on a track to begin with anyway?
I'd probably say at least a quarter of them would consider it. Now, could they afford to do it? That might be a different story, but I would probably say if you've got the bug to race, which most of them do, you're going to get the person that just likes playing a game against other people. They could be playing Call of Duty or they could be doing iRacing. They don't care. They're going to be playing on a screen doing something.
Right.
But the other half, especially the ones that get into it, the real ones that get into it that are tweaking, so they're going in and setting up, it's virtually setting up a race car. So you're doing...
Oh, yeah. They're dialing in suspension and brake bias.
You've got to
everything.
have that love for cars to do that kind of stuff to begin with. So if they didn't have the capability to do it on there, and this is another thing about killing the generation that we're coming up on, is that when we wanted that experience, you had to go out and take a beater and go blow it up and then go fix it. He had to fix his DSMs every other weekend to keep on playing. These people don't have to do it. They hit reset button and keep going.
Yeah. Johann, what about you?
So I think of that question because I've been out of online video game like racing. Like the last one was Gran Turismo 4 a decade ago.
Right.
Not that I mind it. I like playing video games every once in a while, but like anybody our age. But I think that question, I'm thinking more along the lines of my son. He's an 8-year-old. At some point, he's going to get into video games. At some point, it's going to be normal for him to want to play games. I think my concern will be when the game becomes the replacement for being outside.
Right.
And so what I would hope is that it would pique his interest in motorsports. And then we could translate that to, joining Buddy when he gets his go-kart ready and go split gas money and fixing money and let's go play at the go-kart track when it's possible.
Right.
And if we play a video game because it's raining out or it's at nighttime, every once in a while, cool. But
it's a great supplemental tool because you
Right.
can learn tracks that you could be safer because you at least know what turns are
if you
coming.
if you've never run Laguna Seca
Right.
before,
But like for me to sit, but the other part of your question, to watch it, no. Like I just no. Like and it's funny because we can't judge about people who like watching that stuff.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
I might be watching an unboxing of a car part, or watching people take apart bikes or whatever.
Right.
But so that part doesn't. It's just one of those things that I definitely would rather be doing. And it might not be racing, so I might be running or swimming or biking or like I'd rather go out and be doing than watching.
Gotcha.
And so
Plus, half the idea of racing and watching is kind of like anything else. You're watching for the the train wreck.
Yeah,
right?
you're waiting for the big
You're waiting
one.
for he's overtaking him. Oh, he's going to clip it. And when that happens, you hit a reset button, the thing just pops back up as a ghost and starts over again. You're never going to get that.
The actual, the adrenaline and spectatorship.
Right, you're going to see someone win and you're going to see someone lose, but you're not going to get that, that bumper rubbing and that could have put him into the wall.
Right.
We did the Rolex and we watched the Mustang near the end go head first and flip upside down into the tire wall. The thing is, the guy came out good. He's healthy. That's great.
Right. Yep.
But that type of excitement and that type of stuff, you're just never going to see in an iRacing format. And that's half the entertainment side of it. Like we were talking about, it's not that fun. We enjoy the racing part of it, but it's watching it with perfect conditions. iRacing is always perfect conditions.
This is true.
Sure, they can add rain and add cold, but it's still the perfect condition.
And as good as the physics engines are.
like when GT3 had rain on the ground, that was kind of cool.
All right, so as we wrap up, so we started doing this. We did this in the last episode, and I let everybody pick the cars, and it was kind of funny when we did that. Everyone kind of went with the same answer. So this time I picked the cars just to kind of throw it out there. So I'm doing an end segment with everybody, and it's called Daily Race or Crush. So we'll give you 3 cars. We got them listed at the bottom here. So we're calling it the Battle of the Hatches edition. This episode, which car would you rather daily, race, or crush? And we've got a old school CRX SI, a Mark I VW GTI, or the last year of the STI hatch, which I think was 2014.
I'll start. So my Jack Stub people, they're going to hate me. And sorry, Jack Stubbers, but I'd probably crush the Mark I GTI.
All right.
Not because I would want to, because I think it's a cool car.
Oh, yeah.
But out of the bunch, even though the Mitsubishi in me thinks crush the Subaru, just joking. But I'd probably daily the Subaru just because of all the amenities and stuff like that of a newer car. Race the SI because, who wouldn't? Really light VTEC, that would be awesome. And then the GTI, it's third on the list.
In the dirt it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree. We had an SI. That's how I met my wife, was her 91 CRX SI with a B16 swap at stage 6 for doing dyno day. That's how we met them, right? And we raced the 91 SI. So definitely the race probably of those would be that. And just because of the newity of a 2014 versus a Mark I GTI, I love the GTI as well. It started the hot hatch world that we live in today, and I love hatches and I love wagons, but as if I'm going to daily drive it. Now, granted, I do kind of daily drive a right-hand drive Honda Acti that you have to crank up just because it's neat.
So
cool.
Cool.
It's so crazy. But I'd have to I agree with Johann that I daily the the STI hatch. I actually almost bought one of those instead of the Z.
Oh.
When it was like, only reason we didn't is because Ivy had said no. It's so loud and so rough in the back that that the baby would get shaken baby syndrome being back there. But I'd have to agree. I'd say let's race the SI, let's crush the GTI, and let's daily the STI.
For my Jack Stub people, one of the cars that I do miss having is that 2003, the 20th anniversary GTI.
Oh, yeah.
By far, I think it's one of the best cars. It was way faster than cars that it should have been that were ahead of it, and it's just such a fun car to drive. So sorry, Jack Stubbers on the Mark 1, but I love my Mark 4.
It is what it is.
Mark
To the
4
dirt
life.
it goes. Awesome. No, well, like I said, as we wrap up, just want to thank you guys both for taking the time out of your day, coming on the show. Definitely have you guys back out again. I hope you guys had a great time. And to everybody out there listening, definitely like, subscribe, leave some comments, show us some love, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Are you ready to see somebody's need for speed? I can put our wings in the wind faster than you could ever believe. Are you ready to rock? Fun that don't ever stop.